Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Tuesday morning. Man, it is happening so fast right now. Golly, there's so much activity. Everybody, a lot of schools now, not everybody, but a lot of schools still don't know who their quarterback's going to be. And you know what? It may be several games into the season before some of them know. It doesn't look like Alabama's close. It doesn't look like Auburn's close. Florida named Graham Mertz, Fred Nethel's son, transfer from Wisconsin. Guy's got a damn good resume. And if you don't think they play good football at Wisconsin, you're crazy. I bet you in the last 30 years, they're in the top 12 winningest football teams in America. And don't give me that, well, they play in the Big Ten. They're really good. They play really good football up on the peninsula in Madison, Wisconsin. And it's just, you know, Barry Alvarez, when he came there in 90 from Notre Dame, had a mission. And, man, he has really got something special at Wisconsin. But Graham Mertz, anyway, transferred from Wisconsin. He's now Florida's starting quarterback. Going to be fun to see what Billy Napier does in year two. I think a lot of people are saying, oh, he's on the hot seat or whatever. That's silly. And look, you have to give a coach a little bit of time to get his kind of people in there. You say, well, those are his players. Yes. But what Billy Napier, he won 41 games in 4 years at the University of Louisiana. He came over from the Sun Belt, which is really borderline, P5 or it's certainly the best group of five conference in football. So don't count out Billy Napier because last year they went 6-7. Or they're going to be. Florida will be good. They are building. We get a lot of good information on the Gators from Franz Beard, Buddy Martin, Ben Troop, Allie Peak Wilbur, great people that cover the Gators. And I'm telling you, if you watch what is happening, the quarterback, the portal can change everything. But Alabama, with Tommy Rees as offensive coordinator and Tyler Buckner transferring in, you think their relationship will help. But Rodney Orr will tell us Jalen Milroe, he's really good. You think about Ty Simpson. Who's it going to be? They don't know. They just don't know. All right, we're here 6 days a week, 25 shows a month, at least 50 hours of content a month. We do our best job every day to bring the best guests, give you the best insight, best information from the smartest minds who cover college football, which always leads into pro football, pro basketball, whatever, when we talk about college basketball. But we cover the SEC and your favorite team, University of Memphis, Arkansas State. We'll cover the Sun Belt. We got Dave Schultz, Schultzy Cast. Always love having him on. He is the sultan of the Sun Belt. All right. So let me say this too. We talked a lot about the Ed Murphy Track Classic, and Mark Hamm, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, has just checked in from a hotel. Not sure where he is. He's on the road again. Willie Nelson would love him. But I want to say this. We talked a lot about the Ed Murphy Track Classic. Eddie Murphy just sent me these numbers in, and that was held in Memphis August 4th and 5th at Rhodes College. And then on Beale Street, they had the pole vault and a race Saturday. 41 countries sent athletes to Memphis August 4th and 5th. And this is a grassroots effort. Eddie Murphy and a lot of great people on that team, a lot of great local supporters. Solid performance. Number 19 in the world, number 4 in the USA. Okay. So that is really impressive. And this was year 7. And there was a nice video on the real work being done for the kids in Memphis with the Murphy Track Club. Man, it is changing kids' lives. Instead of sitting on their butts all day or playing with iPads and doing nothing, these kids are doing what Mark and Audrey and all of us did, and all of y'all listening growing up. We were outside. We couldn't stay in the house and lay around. We had to go do stuff. And, to be the best, coolest kid in the neighborhood, nowadays, do you have an 84-inch TV or a 96? Or what electronic device do you have? Back when we were growing up, who could do the most push-ups or pull-ups? Who was the fastest kid on the track? God love the Ed Murphy Classic, the Murphy Track Club in Memphis. Find out how you can support it. We'll get you hooked up with them. But, man, the more kids that we have participating in track and field, there's where your great athletes come from, because track and field is your insurance policy for every sport you play. I don't care how old you are, getting out on the track and doing some speed work, some fast-paced work, doing 400s, 200s, whatever pace you want to go. You might want to do 6 400s at 60 to 75, whatever. I love track work. I absolutely love it. God, I love that Ed Murphy Classic. And it's going to make every one of these kids stronger physically and mentally and morally, because they will have to trust their teammates to show up and not drop the baton. And if they do, pick it up, act like nothing happened. Mark, rankings came out last night. We were watching on the color TV over here through the neighbor's window. That damn cable's expensive. So, cut the cord and only stream. But the Vols are ranked 12. Texas numbered 11. And Oklahoma was in there at 20. They ranked 5 or 6 SEC teams. I think they're going to be more than that during the season, get into the rankings. But are you like me and say, really, these things don't mean a damn thing till about the middle of October anyway, but they sure are fun for us to talk about Tuesday morning, August 15th, 2023?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. You got to start somewhere, right? You got to set a baseline for the new year, and obviously, teams, have new players that come and go. I guess my only issue is, look, Tennessee hasn't been, all that great in the last couple of years. I'll be the first one to admit that. But hey, we had a great year last year, and we had a quarterback that got hurt, and we had one that came in, and we put it down on Clemson. On national TV, and they're ranked ahead of us. So that's, especially with the same quarterback we got, and we've got better people coming in. But and then you got LSU at number 5. We went down to Death Valley and beat the what out of them as well. So I was a little perturbed by it, but you know what? Maybe it's just motivation. Maybe we've got to earn a little more respect.
Yeah, and look. Joe Milton III, people will say, well, he's not really good with the short and intermediate passes. Well, we have a lot of coaches on this show, and I love what Butch Thompson, Auburn's baseball coach, says. He goes, players are allowed to get better during the season. How much better, if you think about it, is Joe Milton III, having been in the system with Josh Heupel and working and being a close friend and teammate with Hendon Hooker? I think he's learned a lot, and I think he's matured a lot, and he's got really good people around him. And if I'm a quarterback and I know I've got Brew McCoy to throw to, among others, man, my confidence level goes through the roof, and I sleep better at night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it takes time for some of these players to understand things. He was at Michigan. He came here. He started to get hurt. Hendon came in, and, he was Hendon's biggest supporter. So, it's not an easy offense. I mean, I think a lot of people think that, we're just going to come in and it's just an easy offense. We just throw the ball long. And that was kind of the knock on Jalen Hyatt, right? When he was going to the NFL, they were like, look, this guy can only run one route. Well, if you look at what he's doing at the Giants right now, he's really kind of dominating up there. And he had one of the fastest times in the NFL as far as, how they rank people or try to see how quick they are and measure that. So this offense is complicated, so I think these guys are going to get better, and I think Joe's going to get better. And if you look at last year against Clemson, his biggest knock was not being able to throw the intermediate ball. He was throwing it too hard. I think I sent you that video yesterday. We threw the ball about 150 miles an hour as a joke. But I think, that the quarterback coach has worked with him to where he takes a little off the long ball. But, look, I mean, he had a great game against Clemson. And Clemson's ranked, 8th in the country this year ahead of us? So
Yeah. Well, they're in the ACC too. And I think Tennessee would have been – if Tennessee were in the ACC, they'd be picked to win it. Mm-hmm. That's the difference. And you saw –
and you have Florida State in there. You got Florida State ahead of us.
Yeah. So there you go. You've really got that's a two-team race for the most part. But I don't think North Carolina can be good. NC State should win probably 9 or 10 games. They're trying to get over the hump. But the thing about Tennessee, that offense that they run, an offense typically or a defense has about a 3-year shelf life. If you think about Josh Heupel, he has been successful. When he was at Oklahoma, he led them to a national championship, a runner-up for the Heisman Trophy winner. He's smart, and what he does understand is you've got to constantly evolve, Mark. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the SEC pays their coordinators and their coaches a lot of money for reasons like, hey, we've got to win every game. There's no pressure here, but let's move along. What I like about Tennessee's offense is they can run the ball and impose their will on people. They're not this spread offense with 4 wideouts, empty set backfield, and the quarterback, gets hurried or hit on every play. Mm-hmm. That's the difference in this team. If the offensive line continues to improve, then Tennessee's a threat to win like they did last year. If they don't, they're going to struggle, but I don't see them going down. And then on the defensive side, Rodney Garner's put 45 of his guys that he's coached into the NFL. Mm-hmm. He's the defensive line coach for Tennessee, led by Omari Thomas. I mean, the line of scrimmage, Tennessee's pretty damn good, and they're deep.
Yeah, I think our defense has definitely picked up. I mean, that was kind of the knock that we've always had, and they're playing the SEC. Look, you've got to be 2 to 3 deep. Years ago, our coach, Chief, that was our defensive coordinator for all those years with Phillip.
Oh, yeah.
He's a good friend of a neighbor of mine. And years ago, I remember talking to him. This is after he'd left and went to LSU. And I asked him, I said, what's the difference between LSU and Tennessee? And that's when they were, dominating. He says, he goes, I have 1As and 1Bs. He goes, and I have depth after that. So at defensive line, he said, so, I've got players that if they're tired and they have to come out, I can put somebody in that's just as good. So you've got to have depth. And that's always stuck with me. And that was, 10 or 12 years ago. So if you look at Alabama, you look at Georgia, I mean, what do they have? I mean, they have players 1A and 1B. Then you get into the second string, and that's 2A and 2B. So, and they're all these 5 stars that are coming in. So I think in the SEC, it's like the NFL. I mean, you've got to have depth. You got to rotate guys. And it's hot, man. I mean, when it's 100 degrees on the field and, you're 6'3" and 350, you're going to get tired. So if you can bring somebody in and you can, catch a breath, look, you're going to dominate the line of scrimmage. And that's what Alabama and Georgia's done year over year. So I think with Rodney Garner, we're in good hands. I like Omari Thomas. We've got some guys that are coming in that are going to be some studs. I mean, they've got to get up to speed, obviously, in the SEC. But, look, I like where we're headed. I mean, there was a stat last year which was good and bad. We were great against the run, and we were terrible against getting the quarterback. So that's what they're working on this year, is being able to put some pressure on the quarterback. And I think if we do that, we probably, we'll do okay.
Well, the thing that Rodney Garner is famous for is platoon football, rotating guys constantly during the game, keeps them fresh. Fourth quarter, Mark, wouldn't you say you're really good with technical analysis of everything? The first 5 minutes of the game, of every football game, are critical. That sets the tone. Then the last 5 minutes of the first half, and then the first 5 minutes of the second half, and then the fourth quarter. So essentially, you're looking at about 30 minutes of the game is where most of the game is won, or most games are won and lost. Most games come down to 4 or 5 plays. That's just what it is. So if your guys are tired, they're going to make mistakes. If they've got replacements and they've got depth and they can get a break, that's when you're sharp in the fourth quarter. And you look at the games. Every team has their weaknesses. I mean, Georgia, Ohio State was just wearing them out in last year in the playoff, and Marvin Harrison Jr. goes out. That doesn't guarantee you they would have beaten Georgia, but that game, that just shows you how close it is. Look at the preseason rankings that came out last night on the AP poll. Georgia number 1. I think that's crazy because they don't even know who their quarterback's going to be.
Right.
There's a lot of talent there. I get it.
Yeah.
But then number 2 is Michigan. Number 3 is Ohio State. I like what Matt Stinscombe said on SEC Network. Hey, man, put Michigan in there. You got plenty of time to work this stuff out. And I think he being a Georgia All-American offensive lineman, I think he's having fun with that. But, you can come out of nowhere and win the national championship if you play a tough schedule. You'll get the notice.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. I mean, a couple of comments. One, you're right. You got to, platoon and run people in and out. And you can't just have somebody that, hasn't played all year. You got to have somebody that's, got some experience. So I think what you see with Alabama and Georgia and these others is you have people that, have experience, have played during the year, which allows them to not just come in and give somebody a breather, but, they actually can run the plays and be, productive while they're in there. So you got to run that. You got to start with your best guys, but having guys that can come in and come out and play against top talent is critical. And I think that's what you see at Alabama and Georgia. They've got top talent, and these guys can rotate in and rotate out, and they really don't miss a beat. But to your point, I was down in Athens last week, moving my daughter in. And it's tough for me to get near the campus. So I try to stay away. She's a little bit off campus, but anyway, I think look, Georgia is building something great, but again, they don't know who their quarterback's going to be. So I think they have a little exposure there. We'll see what happens, but they're going to have a quarterback that can get it done.
Yeah, I mean Carson Beck, Brock Vandegrift. I think Carson Beck is Gunnar Stockton. I mean, those are the 3 names, but there's so much talent around them. To me, Mark, if you're the coach, or let's say you're the quarterback, and you're the new quarterback, and you've
right.
Joe Milton started. He started a few games there at the end of the season, and he started when he first got to Tennessee in 21. I like to have running backs to turn around, hand the ball off to. That's always been kind of the safety valve. But in the SEC, if you can't run the ball, and you can't stop the run, and you don't have a solid kicking game, you'll be lucky to be 500.
Mm-hmm.
But Tennessee, what I noticed, Heupel, again, he's different than the spreads that they run in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
He understands the SEC. What's different about him is he's a guy that played at Oklahoma under Bob Stoops and was at Central Florida, won games down there, came into Tennessee, won 7, should have won 8 that first year. That loss against Purdue. That was the Music City Bowl. That was, but that I think that motivated Tennessee. That game, you can say what you want about. You better want to win every damn game you play, and you listen to any coach, they will tell you flat out, coach, this is a big game. If they've ever coached in the SEC, they'll tell you, son, with all respect to you, they're all big. Try losing 1 here at Tennessee or Georgia or Auburn or Alabama, or whatever. That's what people don't get. So you're always you look at every game is big. Tennessee is going to open up September 2nd in Nashville, and we were up there for media days a month ago.
Right.
God bless, man. Nissan Stadium. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere against Virginia. Kind of thought maybe they'd play that one like they played Virginia Tech a few years ago in Bristol.
Right.
Was it 160,000?
Oh, yeah.
It's just, that is so, it's just insane. But you got Virginia coming in. They struggled. Tony Elliott is in his, second year, having come from Clemson, had a lot of success there. Mark, Virginia's a program. If you look at the population in that state, George Welsh had them winning a lot of games. They've had successful runs, but this will be a tough game. It's a regular season game against an ACC team. And look, you know what? Nobody's lost a game yet. Nobody's won a game yet. So both teams are going to be pretty confident. I think it'll be a good test for Tennessee in game 1. It's not like they're playing, an opponent that just won't even give them a game.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I mean, I've already got people saying, "Hey, we're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to win." Based on what we did last year. But every year is different. So again, anytime you play anybody on a Saturday, anybody can win the game, especially first game of the season, because there's going to be a lot of mistakes and there's going to be a lot of things you're trying to figure out. And you're going against people. I mean, Joe and those guys are throwing against a different defense. So you never know what that's going to entail. So I'm pretty confident about where we are and where we're going into. But again, you got some great teams out there in the ACC. And, you can't take any game for granted. And I think that's what happens sometimes. If you get too cocky and go in, then, you can get beat. But I really hope we get out to a quick start. I think if, we're running Heupel's offense and we've got some receivers, even though we lost 2 great receivers, we've got some other ones that are fantastic. And we got a guy that's 6'5" that's come in from Oregon, a transfer that runs the fastest guy on the team. So, I'm liking what I'm seeing, at least on the outside. And we got 3 great running backs. I mean, we had really good run game last year, but we'll see what happens. But I think it's going to be. I hope it's going to be a track meet for us, and I hope we're going to put up some points.
Yeah. Now looking at the SEC East, I want to go break it down here. We know Georgia is. Right now they're preseason number 1.
Right.
They're stacked. They've had 25 players drafted in the last 2 years. Florida is a program sitting at number 3 or 4 in the recruiting rankings right now. But you're starting to see Florida. I don't know. I mean, Graham Mertz, Mark, you watch a lot of football. He's a transfer from Wisconsin. They play damn good football up there. People need to get it out of their head that the Big Ten. Look, I understand in the last 50 years, the SEC's won 19 national championships. The Big Ten's won 2.5. But I look at Wisconsin. In the last 30 years, they're one of the winningest programs in college football. Right. And now this guy's going to have better skilled players, better talent around him. Mm-hmm. Then I look at South Carolina. I mean, Tennessee did not see that one coming. That was their DNB and Fu moment, 1954. 63-38. I mean, South Carolina scored on every possession a touchdown. I think at the end of the first half, they ran the clock out. So it just goes to show you how dangerous. I think the SEC East has really made strides. Kentucky, as long as Mark Stoops is there, they're going to win 7 or 8 games a year. And then Missouri with Eli Drinkwitz, I don't know what to think of them. I'm not sure if they know what they want to be. So, but I want to say Vanderbilt, right. 59-0 last year. Clark Lee. Right. I don't think Clark Lee though was brought into Vanderbilt to be a nice loser. They're supposedly, Mark. Now, supposedly, because Vanderbilt historically has been tighter than a clam with lockjaw when it comes to spending money on athletics. They're talking $600 million. They've got to do something with Crump Stadium in Nashville, Dudley Field. But the SEC East is getting to be more competitive. We're not even talking about the West. The East is getting better. Mm-hmm. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, South Carolina, put it to us last year. They got a good coach over there and with Beamer. And I think, Rattler was you got to realize, he was one of the top quarterbacks in the nation, coming out of high school. Went to Oklahoma, didn't have a great career there, but they've had some shakeups there, and he goes over and he's been up and down. But if you get a good coach, you got a quarterback. I mean that's that highly ranked, and he looked like a Heisman candidate against us last year. I think there were some internal things going on with Tennessee, a lot of rumors around some things that were going on between a couple of the players, and that might have contributed to to us not being so focused. But again, that's water under the bridge. You got to move on and you got to win those games. I mean, that was a game that kept us out. But Florida, it's Florida, and they're going to be good. They got a lot of talent down there. They've got the new coach that's going to recruit, and it's easier for them to grab people out of Florida. It's going to be competitive. And then next year, I guess it's next year when we get Oklahoma and Texas that come in, and it's going to change things around again. So. Look, it's going to be tough no matter what you're doing. Georgia's got the easiest schedule in the country, I think, this year. They play us and they play Ole Miss, and that's about it. And I was laughing with my daughter and some of her roommates, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't even really have a football schedule in the month of September." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know you're playing like, Eastern State and junior college, I think, for the first couple of games."
Yeah,
but I look at it like this, good for Georgia, they can play some cupcakes. So if they're not playing anybody that, is going to give them a match, then, maybe they're not going to be ready when when Ole Miss or Tennessee comes in. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, the East is definitely getting better. Bama's obviously, dominated forever on the other side. And you got LSU that's going to get better, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, where you're at, you're going to have to recruit and win in the SEC, and it's tough. It's tough. We have to play every year until next year, whenever it changes. We play Alabama, Florida, and Georgia every year, and then we get another team thrown in there. I mean, so we're playing, 2 top 5 teams. We're playing the national championship teams, Alabama and Georgia, every year. So for us to win, we're going to have to overcome that. We have to recruit and beat them. And until we do that, we'll never be in the national championship.
Well, and that's what's so fun about it. Now, Georgia, they've got UT Martin, Ball State, South Carolina, and UAB in their first 4 games. Now, the reality is UAB is pretty good. South Carolina, I think they destroyed them last year. Yeah. And then UT Martin and Ball State, they clearly are, outmatched. But I like what Kirby Smart was saying. Watched him on SEC Network last night. He said, forget the schedule and what people are saying. He goes, you're playing Georgia. You're on this team and you're practicing. You're playing Georgia. And I just checked, and Georgia's one of the best teams in the country. And that's how he's approaching it. What makes Kirby Smart such a successful coach, I think he's 87-15 in 7 years at Georgia, is that he uses that kind of psychology. Mm-hmm. Day in and day out, you're beating the hell out of each other. That's what's making Georgia. But otherwise, if these kids get caught up in the name game, that's where you can slip up and get in trouble. Mm-hmm. And I think people, when you look at a schedule during the summer, when you're at the beach, sitting in your chair with your feet in the sand and the water, drinking cold road sodas, like an ice cold Hamm's beer or something, it's easy to look at that schedule and go, well, this is going to be a tough one. This is going to be easy. And this one's easy. It doesn't work like that. Every game, there's all kinds of drama. And that's what coaches are paid to do, is to stir up a bunch of drama. All right, we're going to take a break. Let me say something real quick before we go to a commercial break. Doug Dean's going to join Mark and me here on this Tuesday morning, shortly from Birmingham. Rumble Boxing Gym, 1835 Union Avenue, Midtown Memphis, corner of Union and McLean. They open up like 5 o'clock in the morning. Boxing. Okay, a prize fight, Mark Hamm, is 45 minutes, 15 3-minute rounds. That's what these workouts are. You're in there doing star jacks, burpees, planks, dips, push-ups, all kinds of plyometrics, dumbbell work. Then they click the switch. You switch over and start hitting the punching bags. 250-pound teardrop. They look like Hershey Kisses. This rubber material. It's like hitting a side of beef. It doesn't beat your hands up and crush your metatarsals in your hands. Of course, you've got gloves. You've got the gloves underneath the gloves. It's an awesome workout. And Camp Lee, this is the first of 3 locations that she's opening. Again, this one in Midtown Memphis. Check them out on our website, sidelines.live. Rumble Boxing. It is an awesome workout. I recommend it highly if you want to get a great workout. It's like land swimming, okay? Let's take a quick commercial break. On this Tuesday, we'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne with Mark Hamm on this Tuesday edition of Sidelines. Bouncing around a lot, talking college football, twist our arms, we'll keep doing it. Mark, there's an interesting index that I started paying attention to several years ago. It's the Blue Chip Index, and it's a measure of a roster over a 4-year cycle, the number of 4- and 5-star players you have on that roster. So there's 16 teams on there, and if you're on that list, you are, according to the Blue Chip Index, eligible. You could be considered as a threat to win a national championship. So we'll start at number 1, Alabama. 89% of their roster is 4 or 5 stars. They have 8 linebackers on their team that when they came out of high school were ranked as 5 stars. Okay, put things in perspective, Mark. You're great with numbers and what you do when you're not a superhero. It's Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report. So you start looking at this. In a typical year, about 3,300 kids. I was explaining this to my dad yesterday, and he's an architect. He loves numbers. 3,300 kids a year will sign with Division I football programs. There are 133 of them in the country now. Okay? Of those, 1%, 33, will be rated 5-star on the consensus. That's about the average every year. Mm-hmm. Another 350 to 400 will be rated 4-star. The rest of them are 3s, 2s, or non-rateds, okay? 3 stars, guys like, you ever heard of Patrick Willis out of, he's right in West Tennessee, was the number 23 player in the Tennessee top 25 that year. He's pretty good, all pro 7 of his 8 years. Comes in one day in San Francisco to the football complex and just says, I'm retiring. Thank you. Good night, everybody. You know what he did? He went and works. He works for I know this is an overused euphemism, a tech startup in the Silicon Valley, but that's what he does.
Really?
Okay. That's what he does. God love him, man. Because my man, Marcus Woodson, who's now on the staff coaching defensive backs at Arkansas. I knew Marcus when he was at Auburn after he left Memphis. And I said, Marcus, do you know Patrick Willis? And he said, yeah, he's one of my closest friends. He said, I came in with Eli in 99 and I left with Eli in 03. Marcus from Moss Point, Mississippi, down on the coast. And then when he was leaving, Patrick Willis was coming in. Who will ever forget Patrick Willis leading the SEC in tackles with his arm in a cast? Another great Ole Miss player played some damn good football with his arm in a cast. Archie who? Archie Manning. Think about that. Okay. Now, number 2 on this blue chip index, Ohio State, 80% of the roster is 4 or 5 stars. Georgia, number 3, 77%. Oklahoma, number 4 at 71%. Texas A&M at 70%. Texas at 68%. LSU at 66%. Go on down, Clemson. Tennessee beat handily 31-14 in the bowl game with Joe Milton, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th at quarterback. They're 63% of their roster. Notre Dame at 62% of their roster is 4 and 5 stars. Florida at 60%. Oregon at 60%. Michigan, who's picked preseason, number 2 at 59%. Penn State and Miami at 55% of their roster, 4 and 5 stars. Penn State won the Rose Bowl last year. And Auburn, bringing up the rear at number 16, 54% of their roster is 4 and 5 stars. I don't think that takes into account transfer portal players. Auburn finished 2nd or 3rd in the portal, 20 players brought in. But goes to show you Tennessee, the job that Josh Heupel and that staff are doing coaching the guys that they have. Don't you hate it wouldn't you hate it though if you were a player and a new coach came in and said, when I get my players in here, we're going to be really good. Meaning in the meantime, we're going to suck because we got guys like you on the team. I mean, you got to be very careful with that, don't you, on how you speak to those guys.
Where was Tennessee ranked on there, or were they even on the ranking?
They're not on that list. This was the list of the 16 schools that are considered to be threats to the now. I don't think Auburn or Oklahoma are going to win a national championship this year. I don't think Texas A&M will.
Yeah.
But they've got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And that's the mystery is if you got a lot of talent on your roster and you're not winning, you're going to have problems in the locker room.
Yeah.
Guys pointing the fingers at each other. That's why Tennessee, I think, is, hey, man, nobody expects us to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Let's prove them wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think if you look at that list, I mean, you can probably, superimpose it over the rankings right now, the preseason rankings, right? And then take a look. And that's how a lot of that probably comes out. So, you got Georgia 1. I know Alabama, you said it's number 1 with the players, but they're, I think, 4th or 5th on the preseason. But, if you, overlay that onto the preseason rankings, you're probably going to see a lot of correlation there, right? I mean, between what they have and what's expected. But
Bama, the lowest preseason ranking in 13 years. They're 4th. Yeah. They'll make it. I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think Saban, look, I think he's still the GOAT. I think I have a lot of respect for him. Alabama hasn't really fallen off. They're falling off from Alabama standards. But you also have to realize this guy has to, he changes good or bad. He's got new, coordinators in there every year. And that I think that's tough on him. I think last year it really got to him when I guess it was at the national championship. And what was that? What's the guy's name? The clown that was on ESPN that was a Georgia grad.
David Pollack.
Yeah, when he said that, right in front of Nick Saban that, Georgia's the dynasty and they've taken over, and and the look on Nick Saban's face, and you knew that was just burning inside of him. So I think you might see, depending on their quarterback situation, a different Alabama team this year. But look, I mean, it's you got to recruit, and everybody knows recruiting is the name of the game. What I like about Heupel is, he came in and we lost 30 players in the portal his first year. 30 players. I think we had 65 players on the roster, and we are 55. I mean, it was something insane. And we lost all of our best players, and look at what we did. We almost had 8 wins. And then he's starting to recruit, and we're getting people in the portal that are coming over.
Mark, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I wanted to say it was worse than that.
It
wasn't 30 players in the portal. It was 38 players in the portal.
Okay.
4 players were released from their national letter of intent. So that's do your gazendas. 38 plus 4 is 42. And then 2 were medically retired. That is even more impressive. That's why I'm saying the upside. I would, as a financial advisor, buy Josh Heupel. He's a discount value stock. Yes. Buy Auburn. Auburn is a blue chip stock like Tennessee that has not missed a dividend in 130 plus years of playing football. Mm-hmm. I look at when I pick teams, just like I do, I pick stocks. Mm-hmm. I look at value. You know who was it that was telling me someone sees a growth stock is something I think is going to make money for X number of years. A value stock is, I think it's going to make money forever. And I'm getting it at a cheap price. You're getting Auburn with Doug Dean coming in here, the AU Dose in Birmingham, on with Mark Hamm, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report. And Doug, when Auburn plays Tennessee in Knoxville the next time, you and I and Audrey and I are going to tailgate with Mark. He's got the biggest tailgate on the hill right by the torch guy. You always tell people, go by the torch guy. It's the guy holding the torch right in front of me. And what did Mark say just a few years ago? Your 10 season tickets, you couldn't give them to people. And now what like your daughter's at Georgia and she's already requested every ticket in the county.
I had 10 tickets, and I remember walking to the game during the who all did we have? That was so terrible.
Butch Jones, Jeremy Pruitt,
and I was walking to the game, and I had all these tickets, and there was a dad and a son, and I was like, holding them up. That's before we went to Ticketmaster, and he goes, "How much?" I said, "How about $10 a ticket?" He goes, "How about free?" I'm like, "Just take them, just take them." I couldn't even get $5 a ticket out of it, This year, you know, many people, and I'll tell you, I measure my tailgate by our success, and our tailgate's always been the biggest on campus, and it's been good for big games. But you were up there last year. I mean, that's for Bama. I mean, every tailgate is like that now. I mean, we got 200 or 300 people in there. Everybody wants a ticket. I got people I haven't seen in 10 years showing up now. I'm like, where have you been for the last 10 years? Oh, well, my kids play soccer. Or I got baseball, and you got this. And I'm like, that's BS. You're sitting at home because you're not coming down here. But now you want the tailgate, and now you want the tickets. So, yeah, I got 8 now. But, yeah, my daughter has requested all 6 for her and her Georgia friends to come up. And I'm going to gladly give them to her so they can see Georgia get their ass kicked in Knoxville. So.
Doug Dean, jump in here with this, man. This is what I love about college football, man. Everybody's fired up.
Rocky Top, you'll always be
home sweet home to me.
There's a lot of different versions there. You can go with that. So
Now, it's one of the great fight songs, great tradition, because it's based in reality. It was not really created with the Vols in mind. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, moonshine from and then coonskin and all these different things. So yeah, it's that was mountain life, obviously, right?
Well, and by the way, we have a fellowship of the miserable in this respect, Mark. You had one job, I did too, getting your daughter to Tennessee.
Yeah.
You failed in that mission, as I did with one of my 3 daughters who graduated from Alabama. But hey, it's your baby girl. All you can do is love them and cheer them on. And like I always joke with Allison, hey, girl wants to throw her life away, let her throw her life away. Right?
That's right. She told me she's going to graduate and go to New York, and I said, "Well, I hope that Georgia education, pays for all those expenses in New York." So.
I'd like to audit your Venmo account. I bet you there's a trail of money going out of your account.
Oh my God! She texted me the other night. She goes, it was like 10:30, 11. She goes, "Hey, can I use your credit card to buy some cookies?" I'm like, "I give you money every month. You need cookies for you and your sorority sisters, Anyway, yeah.
I want to go back a couple of decades, a couple or 3 decades for us. We're just. I'm not trying to say y'all are Medicare and Social Security eligible, like I'm not that far from, but you're not 30 years old either one of you cowboys.
Right.
And I was talking to a linebacker who was recruited by Coach Pat Dye, played in that era. And so I was able to get some intel from him about Saturday, notoriously unreliable, almost useless scrimmage intel, right? Because that the coaches on both sides of the ball engineer things to see what they've got, and it's hard to start, creating a depth chart at any position. But he told me when Coach Dye recruited this cat, who was a pretty good linebacker, he said, and I'll see if I can channel Coach Dye's Georgia Southern drawl a little bit. He said, "Well, if you come and play football for me at Auburn, Saturday, the game will be easy, because I ain't going to find out if you'll quit on me on Saturday. I'm going to find out Monday through Friday if you'll quit on me."
Love it.
And
love it.
You can't. It's so interesting. We see some physical, tough football, but I don't believe in my heart of hearts it as a result of Auburn bubble practices in the spring. I'm sure Coach Majors and that whole era of coaches did the same exact thing, creating absolute U.S. Marine, Navy SEAL toughness. And when you went to those practices, you weren't worried about how you'd perform and what your stats would be. You were worried about if you would be back on planet Earth the next morning, if you were going to physically fight. So it's just interesting. I don't know. I don't think you could recruit now if you were trying to coach that tough, and somebody would probably say it's child abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it you got to toughen them up. I mean, and I think the kids love being pushed.
Well, I mean, there's a way to do it, and I'm not for, like when I was playing ball a little bit, it was wussy to want a water break. Now we know that you got to stay hydrated to avoid a disaster with heat stroke. But it'll be interesting to see, speaking of toughness, whispers coming out of Tuscaloosa. I jokingly tell my good Bama friend, I call it West Vance, which is not music to their ears, But is Coach Saban going to go back to his roots that helped him win it all in the first place, which is grinding, mashing, you running the ball, setting up play action, protecting your defense, and kind of step back away from what we saw under Sarkisian and Kiffin, just being willing to outscore people 51-48, not unlike what Josh Heupel did last year to win that game. It's a fun and entertaining brand of football in which defense is optional, right, guys?
Yeah.
But I'm going to be fascinated. Georgia already did a little of that last year, protecting their quarterback from throwing 40 times. And by the way, Stetson Bennett is looking serviceable in the NFL, surprisingly. So I'm interested to see, do we take a step back to a little more old school football, in which games are more like low scoring, 34-30 type games? Or are we going to see, I think Tennessee might continue to want to light up the scoreboard, because I can't picture Josh Heupel following Saban's lead on that. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I would agree. I think Heupel is, he was a quarterback. He's cut from different cloth. And what a lot of people don't realize is, he coached Drew Lock at Missouri when Missouri made that great run, right? So, he's an offensive guy. He wants to put up points, obviously. But you're right. Our defense was terrible last year on getting to the quarterback. So I think, you got to have defense to win the SEC. You can say what you want, but look at what, Georgia's done. Look what Alabama's done. You put up points, but yeah, you got to play defense. And I don't know. I look at Saban. I can tell he's not happy that, one of his underlings has, won the championship the last 2 years, and he's a competitive guy. So I can see him getting back to grinding it out, winning with defense, because last year their defense was good, but they weren't Georgia's defense. He's the defensive guy that's in there. So, I think for Tennessee, I think we're going to probably, play our brand, and I think we're going to probably, put it in the air and do it. But we'll see.
Back to your original, I appreciate you being the mooch, asking Mark if he would host us the next time. And we'll get our own tickets, Mark. But
we'll get tickets.
We'll
get them. I just want his brisket.
Yeah, I do want to pose. It's been a bucket list item of mine that I've got to check the list off next time the Auburn Tigers go to Knoxville, which is a absolutely breathtaking, panoramic, beautiful place for a college football game. One of the iconic images in all of football. But I want Mark, I know he's probably independently wealthy, and his 60-foot yacht to cruise us up the river to a rugby game.
Vol Navy.
Yeah, Vol Navy. Yeah, I'm the captain. No, I'm kidding. No, I have a boat, but I don't get involved in that. It's that's a whole nother level of a party and things that go on. And I've been down there I think once, but I spent so much time at my tailgate. It's hard to get down there, But a lot of people love it. A lot of people, I have a lot of friends that do it. Eventually, I'm going to do it, but right now my tailgate is so involved. It's tough.
Is it a pretty easy cruise, or is it borderline with rough waters, or what?
No, it's very easy. It's the river, but it's dammed up, so it's really like the lake. The water's not even moving that much. More of the boats coming through is what turns up the water, but you get a lot of people coming in. It's a very easy ride, down to Neyland.
That's you can probably do it in 3 or 4 days, wouldn't you guess?
What's that from?
Where would you put in to get to Knoxville?
So some people, it just depends. Some people come, they come a long way. Some come from, try to come from, Pickwick, which I have a friend said he was going to try to do that. I'm like, that's going to take you a while to get there, to try to get all the way through. But I would say a lot of people, though, really probably are in Knoxville or, outside of Knoxville, down in Loudoun County kind of thing. Some people from Chattanooga come up, but you got to realize, you're not going that fast. It's going to take you a while. But if you don't have anything to do and you want to come up and, start on Tuesday or Wednesday and start coming up, you can do that. But most of the people I know bring their boats up on either if it's an early game on Friday or if it's a late game on Saturday, they'll come in, Saturday morning.
Are you going, if you go far enough south, are you going through locks and dams to get there?
Yeah. There's a few locks and dams, but One of them is a lot further down, so you got to go through that lock. So you got to be able to maneuver that too. That's why a lot of people just really from Knoxville, kind of come up. A lot of people don't want to go through all that.
Rob, we can talk a little about what did leaked out of the scrimmage Saturday in Auburn. First of all, if I can, since I'm hearkening back to old school days, college football coaching, quote the great John Heisman, who had a cup of coffee in Auburn, as I recall, Rob, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. Pretty damn good.
Auburn should probably brand that a little better than when we have a player that's maybe going to be on the New York City invitation list. But John Heisman looked at his running backs and said, son, if you fumble this football, it would be better for you that you died as a small boy. And excuse me. Coming out, the best thing I heard coming out of the scrimmage Saturday is 0 turnovers, fumbling or interceptions. And what's surprising about that kind of is Auburn's got an awfully good secondary. I think they will, when the dust settles, Auburn will boast being maybe top 3 or 4 secondary in the SEC, and barring injury and so on. So they weren't able to get any picks. That tells me there's some good quarterback coaching going on. These guys are being coached not to throw into desperation, double, triple coverage, which was a problem the last couple of years. There is not great separation between the 3 quarterbacks. Gurner, by the way, people call it Griner, Garner. His mom said you pronounce it like the name Turner. So Gurner, even though it's spelled G-R-I-N-E-R. He throws the prettiest ball right now and had some moments. Robbie Ashford threw a couple of beautiful balls. One was a TD to the wide receiver Mardner, the transfer. But Robbie also, my intel is, threw several balls 15 yards over a wide receiver's head. So consistency is a challenge. And the transfer from Michigan State, Peyton Thorne, still learning the offense. He had some good moments, but he's by no means locked up the QB1 spot as we sit. To me, none of that is surprising. I think Hugh Freeze probably has a QB1 and 2 in his head. I don't know who that is. If I had to guess right now, I'm not so sure it wouldn't be Holden Gurner, the way he's throwing the ball. But the wide receivers underperformed, and that did not make the coaches happy. They were dropping balls, not getting separation. So I think they will get better. I don't think we're going to have an elite group of wide receivers. So meanwhile, the offensive line got the biggest rave reviews Saturday. They are mashing people. They look cohesive, and they're just tremendous at run blocking. Unless you want to believe that our defensive front sucks, that's the problem with having scrimmages. You don't know how to adjust for a degree of difficulty. I do think this is a dramatically improved offensive line, and we're going to, with that running back room with Jarquez Hunter, Damari Alston, who broke off a beautiful, I think, 65-yard run in which he found another gear and just ran away from people. Yeah. The little bitty mini Mike Battie that transferred from, was it Baylor?
South Florida. Yeah.
South Florida, my bad. And then finally one is the Jeremiah Cobb, the freshman who's turning head. God. And a kid that just got his scholarship, Sean Jackson, who's 236 pounds and reminds you of Rudy Johnson, just bulldozing people. I think you're going to see this coaching staff of necessity really lean on running the ball until the quarterbacks and wide receivers can get on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Jackson out of Hewitt-Trussville. Jefferson County, I used to think Mobile and Baldwin County had the best football in the state. It's Jefferson County and Shelby. And I think Sean Jackson just bolsters that room from the bottom up. I mean, Damari Alston, another Metro Atlanta. Auburn gets so many kids out of Atlanta area. And then Jeremiah Cobb. I talked to some kids up in Memphis that go to Rhodes College. We were over there that went to Catholic in Montgomery that played football with Jeremiah Cobb. And I said, okay, you played with him? He goes, yeah, I was his, quarterback. I said, how good is he? He goes, sir, he is a legit legit college football player in high school. He goes, he will have an immediate impact at Auburn. He goes, he's just got these hands. It's like he's holding crystal when he gets the football. He has great hands. And this was his quarterback. It was pretty cool to hear that. And, the bottom line is, Mark, you know it, Doug, you know it. This preseason right now, you got to learn how to read between the lines, what the coaches are saying. But what I have heard myself, Jake Thornton's a 30-year-old that transferred over. Well, he was Ole Miss's offensive line coach last year. Now he's at Auburn. And he's pushing these guys. He's raising the bar. And I'll tell you, a guy that I keep hearing on my friend Bill Cameron's show in Auburn, Tate Johnson.
Yeah.
Man, how close these guys. You know why they're close? Because they're working their asses off. That's how you get close to people.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know how you could be much worse. I hate saying worse at offensive line than a year ago, but I also think Harson's schemes that were a bad fit for the talent did not help things. But gosh, before I cut out that hard stop at 9, I'm gonna give y'all a trivia question. It's kind of a trick question. An SEC head coach said this. I bet there's 7 or 8 of them that could say this following Saturday's scrimmage, and I quote, "I can't tell you anything until I watch the tape. I can tell you that I'd like to see all 3 of our quarterbacks play better, but the people around them have to play better." When you evaluate a quarterback and you say, well, he threw an interception, well, he hit a guy in the hands and it bounced through the hands and got intercepted, so how do you judge that? I think each one of them has to get better to get where we want to go, and that's a long way. Who is that a quote attributed to, Rob? Mark?
Nick Saban, Kirby Smart?
Nope, Kirby Smart. And you know what's counterintuitive? The average fan, rightly so, would think, well, Georgia just reloads and they're not going to have any difficulties. They already long since, if they can win 2 national championships in a row, what's difficult about? Well, here's what's difficult. 3, except for 2 or 3 teams, we're all, the rest of us are uncertain at best at the most important position on the field. So what does that add up to this year? Upset city, brother, early season. If you have to upset Georgia because they can just blow them away in the trenches. But I think when that position is vulnerable for a quarterback with very few snaps under his belt, then the only one that I would feel more confident about is Dart at Ole Miss, because you know what a good coach Lane Kiffin is, and he's going to lean on Judkins with that run game. But I think you're going to, more than anything else, more than any year I can remember, more variability and uncertainty at the QB position.
Yeah, I mean, I know you got to get out at 9, but I think about the offensive line, how much better they are. They're now in a system where they can succeed. I don't think they had any idea what they were trying to accomplish. I mean, Mark, you know this. You try to have a business without a business plan. It doesn't work. Mm-hmm. I mean, and Doug.
Well, hope is not a strategy, right?
No,
it's
hope.
Not.
It gets people excited, Doug. But Doug, great insight, man. I think the takeaway from this is what you're saying about the quarter. Holden Garner, man.
Keep an eye on him, Rob. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, you got to love him, from Benedictine Military Academy in Savannah.
Yeah,
I was out to dinner with a couple of my clients in Collierville. Audrey and I were Friday night at the Fuji Cafe, best sushi in the world. And he went there. Jim went there. And he's obviously a huge fan. Of course, nothing ever beats military discipline and a Catholic education. So I think this kid, I think he's getting a lot of momentum. I'm not predicting anything, but Doug, I hate to hear Ashford throwing over those guys' heads. He's got to be on the field somewhere. And then Peyton Thorne has a small army that came with him from Michigan State.
Going to get played. Here's the thing, the schedule is your friend, Phillip Montgomery, Hugh Freeze, because you open with UMass. Not that I'm taking any game for granted. Then you go on the road to Cal Berkeley, who is in the Pac-4 conference. Am I right, Rob?
Yeah.
And that one's tricky. Not that I live in mortal fear of Cal, but you got a late, weird cross-country travel, a 9:30 at night game. It's a different environment. Those fans are really fired up early season. So then you come back home and you got Sanford. So that's 3 games that you can see all 3 of these quarterbacks get some reps, and Hugh might continue to evaluate them heading into that road trip to College Station on September 23.
Yeah, I mean those 3 games right there are huge. But then you go on the road to College Station. You got the Bobby Petrino, Jimbo Fisher. That's why we love college football, man. There's so many possibilities. Doug, last question. Of these defensive linemen, Keldrick Falk out of Highland Home, Alabama. Yep. Have we had a freshman at Auburn like that in memory, 6'6", 285 that came in as a 5-star that is that ready to play?
I'm going to add double down and add Keldrick Falk and Kayan Lee, the flip from Ohio State. But Falk is going to be, he's just going to be special, and you're not going to be able to keep him off the field. Probably won't be in the starting in the rotation, but he will see the field early and often, and it won't surprise me if he does take over the starting spot after 3 or 4 games.
Yeah,
he's that good.
I haven't seen one like that as a freshman in a long time. Montravius Adams, Carl Lawson type talent.
Yep. Guys, I hate to do it, but I've got a hard stop, and I wish y'all a fun day. Good to talk, Rob and Mark.
Hey, thank you so much, Doug. Appreciate it. Have a great one. Doug Dean, AU Dothan, Birmingham. Mark, you look around in college football, it drives you crazy, all the narratives. You see that stadium? You see that picture over there over my left shoulder behind me? That's an old picture of Neyland Stadium. It was signed by Johnny Majors to Billy Hamm. It's really cool, and I put that up there, and it's before they bowled in the stadium, and it's really cool. And so I put it up there on the background. I'm gonna start adding. We're gonna be developing this set more and more. I've hired a pretty sharp group of people to help us. The bottom line is, we cover the SEC and your favorite team. You go back, what we're hearing, Kirby Smart did say that. How do you evaluate the quarterbacks and all? I mean, a missed pass that goes right through a receiver's hands, then it's intercepted or it's dropped. I mean, that's kind of what are you saying? The quarterback gets the ball right where it needs to be. So that's a debate. It always is. All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break. Going to come back, Mark. I got a bunch of stuff, a lot of question and answer, and I'm going to get with you because I think and I think that bottom line, Doug's right. Upset city. There's a lot of big-time programs. Look at Georgia, number 1. Bama, number 4 preseason. Still don't know who their quarterback's going to be. There are names, and there's people who are speculating, but we'll talk about it more right after this quick break on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne and Mark Hamm here with you on this Tuesday morning. A lot of stuff happening out there. You look, Mark, when you've got if you have to go 3 or 4 games into a season to determine who your starting quarterback is, what is that telling you, that you don't have a good eye for talent, or you've just got that much talent that one day one guy's the best, the next scrimmage another guy's the best, and it's a good situation? What do you think?
Well, I've seen it up here, and well, I'm in Houston today, but I've seen it in Knoxville, right? It's one of those things that some of these guys practice well. There's not 100,000 people yelling at them, or they're not on the road with 100,000 people yelling at them and telling them how bad their mother is. And I think that gets in their head, at times. So you've got guys that come out and play pretty well in practice. But as some people say, well, he's a gamer, he's a gamer. And I think that's true. I think there are a lot of guys who get out there. Think about that. Think about playing in high school, even if you played in Texas or, Florida, and even if you played in front of 10,000 fans, that's a lot of fans on a Friday night. And on Texas, 20,000. But then all of a sudden, now you're in the SEC, you're playing on national TV, you've got 100,000 people yelling at you, and you're not going to be nervous when you get out there, or, you're not going to maybe throw the pass a little bit different, or you got a 6'7", 350-pound guy, running at you. What do you do? So I think, it's one of those things. I think, practice is practice. It's like, isn't that what Allen Iverson said? It's just practice, practice. Yeah. But, you got to get out there and you got to be able to put all that other stuff out of your head. You got to, talking to Jeff Francis, he's been on the show. He's a buddy of mine.
Yep.
You got to be able to put that out of your head. And if you make a mistake, you got to shake it off. But there's a lot of kids that go to the sideline and they let that stuff get in their head. And then on top of it, the social media side of things, and coaches talk about that. You make a mistake, it's all over social media now, right? And now you've got to face that you threw a pick or you did something stupid, kind of thing. So I think you got to have kids that aren't just physically tough. I think you have to be really mentally tough to play the game in the SEC. You got to be able to, if you throw something, you got to shake it off. You can't think about the next play or that previous play. You got to move on, and you got to perform. But man, I think it's a mental game too. And if you got some people that aren't mentally strong, I think you can fold, really quickly in the SEC.
Well, the bottom line is the mental tough part. You've got to be mentally tough. And, Wally Butts, legendary coach at Georgia, Butts-Mehre Heritage Hall, that's the football complex, was famous or infamous for not letting his players have water breaks. Said it made them soft. But he wasn't the only coach. That was an era where that was common. Think about people that wore the old long sleeve jerseys and you practiced in those things, running the single wing. That's what a lot of high schools used to do. So you look around at what is going on in college football. We keep hearing that the kids today are soft. They're not soft.
Right.
I think it's what it is it's these adults that are wanting to be liked by I could care less if my kids like me, Mark. I'm sure you feel the same way. I hope they love me, but they're going to be in a lot of battles later on in their lives when nobody's around. They're going to be married and have kids and have to learn how to pay bills and make things work. Right. And if they don't learn to be tough when they're young, when are they going to learn?
Yeah.
So I think the teams that when you practice really hard, now you can't beat them up so bad they got nothing left in their legs on Saturday. But every great coach, when you hear them talking, you listen to them, and they win a big game in November or December or January in a bowl game, whatever, they'll say, this is why we push you so hard in January and February and in the spring and in those hot June and July and August days of working out on your own and with the team so you can enjoy moments like this. So if I'm a coach, I'm going by this philosophy of I'm going to work my guys harder than a bunch of rented mules. So when they get to the game, I've always believed in that. And like everyone I've ever talked to that's really good to elite in anything will tell you, look, the games and were easier. The taking the test was easier. That business deal I did was not hard. I have trained so hard to get to that moment. I mean, let's be completely transparent here.
Navy SEALs, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's the Navy SEAL mentality.
Yeah, never put yourself in a position to fail.
Unless you're Johnny Manziel.
That's right.
Have you seen that documentary?
I have not seen it yet, but I've heard it's on Netflix. Okay, so it's on now.
Yeah, I watched it over the weekend, and that dude was something else, man. He was just a different breed. But it kind of goes. It's counterintuitive to things we're talking about. You just got to watch it. It's a whole other level of Johnny football. But anyway.
Yeah,
he was the only exception until he got to the NFL, and then he didn't even. It said he didn't even look at film at all, zero film.
That's. I mean, I tell you one thing, man. You think about though, some guys can be real loose like that, but
he was a gamer. Right? And they didn't even work him hard because he just, Cliff Kingsbury was his offensive coordinator. I guess they lost the first game he started. And he goes, yeah, we decided after that, just let him go do his thing. And they start letting him do his thing. And they just, he was just a beast, But
reminds me of a running back Tennessee had in 1979. I think they beat Notre Dame 42-17, named Hubert Simpson. He didn't like practice, but he loved game day. Sometimes you just got to say, son, I wish you'd practice hard, but God, you are so good on Saturdays. But I'll say this. If you graduate from an SEC school in business, finance, you want to get into investment banking, you're going to be told basically if you didn't go to an Ivy League school or UVA or UNC or Vanderbilt or SMU or Texas, that who are you? We don't. So you come out of these schools with a chip on your shoulder, with an attitude of nobody will outwork me. Nobody will out-prepare me. Nobody will out-anything me. So who do you want to hire? I want that hungry person that's got, that didn't come from, anything, wasn't born on third base and thought they hit a triple. 95% of wealth in America is first generation. Nothing's more disgusting to be around someone who's inherited a lot of money, who's never worked for it, and doesn't want to pay their employees anything.
Yeah.
Because they don't know they know the cost of everything and the value of nothing. Mm-hmm. So same thing with sports. My practice, and I 32 years as a financial advisor, I see it. 95% of wealth is first generation. But it's people that are hard workers. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we love sports is because we see real life played out. You look at guys like Joe Milton. If I'm Joe Milton, I'm going to be getting fired up listening to people tell me what I can't do. I love to listen to motivation tapes and YouTube when I'm out riding or driving. Treat the word impossible as motivation, Mark. If you are a coach right now, and let's say you're Josh Heupel, what are you telling your team at the end of every practice that you think they need to hear? What would be your message, your theme?
I think what, at least in the last year or so with, and he'll never say he didn't have top talent because, one of the stats you were talking about earlier were the 5 stars and 4 stars. And if you go back and look at some of the stats in the NFL, there was something I read a couple of years ago about that. They were looking at the number of players in the NFL and what their star ratings were. And there were a lot of 3 stars, they were actually in the NFL. So if you're Heupel, I think what he has done is he's just very positive. He's a different kind of guy. I mean, he's not a Nick Saban. I don't think he's going to berate players. I think he's more of a positive, you can do it kind of player. Nick, I think, can get away with it because he's got 5 stars. The expectation as a 5-star is that you're going to be dominant, right? You're going to hit the field. You're going to be dominant to begin with. I think Josh was given a different hand, and I think his style, again, is whether you're a 3-star or a 5-star, is to coach them. And I see him getting upset every now and then, but you don't see that often. You just see him being very positive. Even, they don't throw a lot of interceptions, but if there's plays that they don't make, you see him on the sideline with that quarterback talking to him, and he'll get fired up. But, he's one of the coaches, I'll tell you, I don't see him throwing things and yelling and going over the sidelines and berating players. He just seems like a very positive influence. And I think what he's saying to him is, it's okay. We got the next play. Let's move on. And again, it's a mental thing, I think, for him as well. So there's 100 different ways to motivate people, right? You can be the Nick Saban and the, Bear Bryant and beat them into submission kind of thing. Or you can be this other type of coach, that really is, kind of like a Heupel. So, I don't know. I mean, he hasn't won a national championship. So I think Nick Saban's way has definitely done well. But, Nick has, again, 90% of his team are 5 stars and 4 stars. So when you don't have that, you've got to tell these players, yeah, we're going against Alabama, but guess what? You're just as good as they are. And those players have to believe that. And that's the thing I noticed when Heupel came in was, when Pruitt left, we had a team that quit, right? I think we went, what did we go, that 3 and whatever, 4 and whatever, whoever knows. Next year we went 8 games with fewer players and our best players gone. So that tells me right there, those players believe something he was selling. He spent a lot of time doing a lot of team stuff, playing kickball, doing all kinds of fun stuff, making the team want to be around him, and they believed in him. So I think there's a lot of willpower for people as well. When you go back to all right, you've got an SEC guy wanting to get into investment banking versus, the Ivy League. Look, I work in private equity, and there's a lot of smart guys I work with out there that, graduated from Wharton and all these other places. And they're smart as a whip. But guess what? They've never done the day-to-day and run practices and some of the things that I've done. So, I've just had the will to say, look, I get you, you might have scored a 36 on your ACT and I didn't, but you're not going to outwork me. And I'm going to make as much money, if not more money, because I understand the business side of things, So yep. I think it's one of those things that, you just got to get the right player and you got to find the right way to motivate them. You got to motivate them. And that's what I've seen with Heupel in year 1 and year 2, to think in year 2, we beat Alabama, after however many years, 14, 15 losses. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, we didn't even have enough players to even fill a roster the year before. And to do what he's done, I don't know. I think what he says, at least what I see, is you can do it. We're going to do it. And then when they have a win, he builds. And then there's another win they build. And it's like climbing the mountain. You might take a step back, but you're always taking a step forward to the point where they believe it. And those players believe it. They don't care if they're 5 stars or 4 stars they're going against. When they light them up for 50-yard touchdowns, and Jalen Hyatt was a 3-star. He had 5 touchdowns against Alabama. 5 touchdowns. So against 5 stars and 4 stars. So, that's a guy that believed that he's just as good, if not better than they are. So,
well, the performance of Hyatt against Alabama last year, 5 touchdowns, still ranks, and it will always rank as one of the greatest performances, single game performances by a player in the history of the Southeastern Conference. And we were there, 52-49, and the place went nuts. 15 years of pent-up frustration of the losing to Alabama. And that's always been a streaky series. 71-82. Tennessee wins 82-85. Then Alabama wins 86-94. Then Tennessee goes down there on the first play of the game. Peyton Manning hits Joey Kent 75 yards. Give him 6 at Legion Field. The route was on. But I go back to it, is that there are people that are smart, but they've never had to use their brain. Everything's been handed to them. Okay. You get on a team where you come in and you've won back-to-back national champions. You better be careful if you're a freshman at Georgia and thinking there's some sort of armor shield of protection around you, because everybody in the SEC and everybody you play will throw everything, including the kitchen sink, shoes, and rocks and glass and whatever at you to beat you.
And mustard.
You're not going to catch anybody. Mustard bottles, and golf balls.
Golf balls.
Yeah. Nobody is going to sleep on you. And that's what, Alabama, you have to admire, like, everybody. When they play a team, it's the game of the year. It may be the biggest game in that school's history if they've never played you, but it's usually when Alabama loses under Saban, as our good friend Gary Harris down in Tuscaloosa, Tide 100.9 and Channel 23 says, it's epic nowadays when Alabama loses. Well, for Georgia, they hadn't lost but one game in the last 2 years, and that was to Alabama. So I think people need to really think about the strength. And Jordan Hill's going to be on here with us in just a minute, who covers Georgia 24/7 Sports down in Athens. And I'm looking out here on the schedule, looking in the SEC West. You look at Alabama will be picked to win it with LSU, Arkansas, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Auburn. I mean, Mississippi State won 9 games last year. Zach Arnett is the new head coach, but he was defensive coordinator there for 3 years under Mike Leach. Think about what's in that guy's head. Learning in team meetings from Mike Leach how to destroy and attack and expose a defense. You know, don't underestimate Zach Arnett. He's only 36 years old. I think he'll be 37. His birthday's September 9th or 10th. And he had a baby while he was up at the podium. His wife had a baby while he was – men cannot have babies, Mark. I know that's a news flash to some of the idiots out there, but men cannot have babies. Women can, but men can't. But Zach's wife had a baby while he was at media days up on the podium addressing the media. And he was talking about that on SEC Network with Dari Noka. And, you know, Dari's going to be fun. Dari's an Oklahoma graduate. He is really, really good on SEC Network. Seems like a genuinely decent guy. He's not full of himself like a lot of these clowns are. But I'm looking around at the West, Mark, and other than Bama, LSU's got who has the best dual threat quarterback? KJ Jefferson, Jaden Daniels, but who's the best pure quarterback? I think it's Will Rogers at Mississippi State. He's been there for a long time. He's set all kind of – he's 2,117 yards away from being the all-time passing leader in SEC history. And Mississippi State's probably picked 5th or 6th in their division.
Yeah.
How do you make sense? It's very difficult when you start trying to pick the teams, but Alabama doesn't know who their quarterback's going to be. LSU does. Mississippi State and Arkansas do. Ole Miss, I think it's going to be Jackson Dart. Texas A&M, it'll be Connor Wigman. He's pretty damn good. But Mark, here's everybody's asking this question. Bobby Petrino, Jimbo Fisher. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it's going to surprise people, but I'm going to predict Bobby Petrino has full control of that offense. I'm going to take him for his word. I'm going to just, it's so much of our culture is cynical and sardonic and just, oh, everything is a lie. And, I'm right, you're wrong. You're right, I'm wrong, whatever it is. I really think Texas A&M with Bobby Petrino and the talent they have could be scary good this year on offense. I don't know about their defense, but I think they're capable with Bobby Petrino. Where has he gone and that team didn't score a lot of points? Say what you want about the guy. I don't know him, but he wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting match down there. But I think, Jimbo realizes that he's going to have to do something different, right? I mean, with the contract he has and the expectations at A&M, and Petrino's been a head coach in the SEC. So, I don't know what that match is going to be like, whether it's a match made in heaven or wherever it may be. But,
There's
Jimbo,
only one other choice, Mark.
Yeah, Jimbo seems like, he likes to be in control, and obviously most of these coaches do, but so does Petrino. So if he's willing to, be a CEO and let his, senior vice president over here, run that side of the house, and if he has success, doesn't, let it affect his ego too much, I think he'll do just fine. And I think that's what's hard for some of these coaches as well, is giving up, because they do have a lot of ego and they want all the credit. Say what you want, but but you got to have good people that work for you. I mean, you can't do it all yourself, so it's difficult.
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting there thinking, look at what is going on in college football. Greetings from Germany. Now that one, do we have folks in Dusseldorf listening, or at the Marienplatz at the Hofbrau House, where I once saw one of the German barmaids carrying 12 beer steins, 6 in the left, 6 in the right, filled with German beer.
Nice.
You've been to Germany, Mark. Have you been to the Marienplatz where the Hofbrau House is?
We did not make it. We were over there this summer, but we did not make it there.
Okay, go to Munich, and you will be in there with 3,000 people in the Hofbrau House in Munich, and no fighting. I mean, I think it's because they start drinking in elementary school over there, and they just learn how to handle it. And also, the German police are pretty intense people. Riding around in Mercedes and BMWs. It's an interesting place. But listener in Germany there, I don't know his name, but is that Hans from Dusseldorf? It could be Uncle Klaus from Kaiserslautern, or it could be Mr. Hamburg from Munich. I don't know who it is, but interesting from Germany. But Mark, I'm going to tell you the thing that blows my mind looking at this. This is a fun discussion this morning because you and I mean, you're on here a lot covering Tennessee, but you've got a great mind, can cover all the SEC. I'm looking at the SEC West, Brian Kelly in year 2, they're going to open up with Florida State. And that's not going to be an easy game in the first weekend. Last year went down, 24-23 in the Superdome. Again, why not play the damn game on campus? Why couldn't LSU have played Florida State in Baton Rouge? It's an hour and a half away. And now Florida State going down to Orlando. I mean, it'll be technically a home game for Florida State, but why are people so damn afraid to play legitimate road games? I pointed this out yesterday on the show. LSU started playing football in 1892. Outside of SEC games, do you know how many victories? And this is not a knock on LSU. I got to say that because I don't want anybody to think I'm trashing them. But do you know how many road wins, legitimate, true road wins LSU has in their 131-year college football history against top 10 teams on the road?
I have no clue.
One.
That
was 2019 when they beat Texas in Austin.
Wow.
And that was a shootout.
Yeah.
It just tells you, I mean, college football is about controlling everything you can. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, we're going to play you, but on these terms. And Alabama will play Michigan at Jerry's World out in Dallas. Why not play a home and home? But you know what? I think Alabama's going to Wisconsin. Alabama went to Austin last year. I mean, Auburn's going to Cal. They better beat Cal. They got to take care of that business. But I love these legitimate road games. Mm-hmm. Florida State, remember when Bobby Bowden got there? We'll play anybody, anytime, anywhere. And if they beat you on the road, they would cut up a chunk of your turf, and they've got this graveyard outside of Doak S. Campbell Stadium in Tallahassee. It's turf that's grown over the years from all those places they played on the road, building the Seminole brand. Isn't that pretty cool? Is that it looks like a wall cloud in the back. Is that a wall cloud a tornado cloud? I watch a lot of the Weather Channel behind you, or is that just the curtain?
That's the curtain, but down here in Texas, you never know. I mean, it's
it does look like a wall cloud.
Yeah, you never know.
Like, but I just don't want to see Jim Cantori in the background.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that I think nowadays is about money. I mean, look, when I was working out in Dallas, we had a box at Jerry World, and they always had that first game, and I took Will down there for a couple of games, and I guess it was when Alabama played Michigan, and we were able to get on the field, and I was down there with Lee Corso hanging out and having a good time because we had access. But I think it's about money, and I think it's also when it's a big game like that first of the year. I mean, look, you don't want to lose a game, but you also want to get the national TV exposure. And if you're going to lose in college football, you better lose early, right? You don't want to lose late. So I think a lot of people don't want to go on the road because they don't want to give an advantage to somebody. And if they're going to play somebody big, let's try to do it in a neutral setting. Let's get paid for it. So
Yeah.
Nobody wants a loss, that early in the year. But no, it's tough, man. I mean, you got to go on the road these places. It's a whole different ball game, man.
It really is. And I'm telling you, I look around at all of the stuff happening in college football, and I look at the narratives going into this season, but none's more compelling than our next guest, Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports down in Athens, Georgia, going for the three-peat. Again, Carson Beck, Brock Vandegrift, Gunnar Stockton. Those are the three names talked about the most. Your daughter's be a sophomore at Georgia. Jordan Hill covers Georgia, again, 24/7 for 24/7 Sports. Ha, that was trying to be funny. But anyway, let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back, bring in Jordan Hill, and get into this discussion about the Dogs' potential for a three-peat on Sidelines Tuesday editions.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Let's bring in Jordan Hill and get going here with Georgia. Jordan, we had this discussion from throughout the show talking about the SEC East, SEC West. Just there's so many compelling narratives. And you listen to Kirby Smart talking about quarterback. It's hard to evaluate guys. Balls slip through a guy's hands. It's dropped. It's intercepted, whatever. I mean, that's just practice, whatever. But from what you're hearing, what limited access, if any, to practices at Georgia, let's start with the quarterback battle right now. Who you think is in the lead, and if so, why?
I think it's Carson Beck, and I don't think that's a surprise to anyone listening who's followed it even through the spring. I mean, he's a guy that seems to have stepped up to the challenge, performed well during the spring, and definitely had the best day at G-Day. I think the other guys have had their moments. It sounds like Brock Vandegrift has had a pretty good fall camp. He is seen as the most likely to push Carson. But from everything I've heard, from everything we've gotten to see, the limited times we've been out there, I think that it will be Carson Beck. No real change from what we thought coming out of spring. I think that, even then, he's going to have to perform in these early games because Georgia knows that they've got talent at quarterback behind him. But I think it will be Carson Beck. And just based on what I've heard from people, even the players, and from what Coach Smart has shared to this point, I think Carson has performed really well. And I anticipate once he does start that he will live up to the expectations and that he will be the starter going through the season.
Mark, you're talking about that Carson Beck. He played a little bit last year. But jump in this conversation. Of course, Mark's got a daughter. He's in Knoxville, Jordan, Tennessee, biggest tailgate on campus. His daughter will be a sophomore at Georgia, so he was just down there last week. And so he's a torn man, and he can't wait for her to come with all of her friends for that big matchup in Knoxville this year. That is going to be fun for you.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun if we're winning. I mean, you just never know, right, where we're going to be because we play the game so late this year. Um, but if we're all doing well, look at the implications. As you move into the end of the season, and as I said, you don't want to lose late in the season. If you're going to lose, you lose early. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that when you start with a new quarterback. I mean, Stetson obviously, did very very well there. Continues to do well, and we've got a quarterback, that doesn't have a lot of football experience as far as game day, but had a couple of good games last year, and Clemson was one of them. But that's not going through the whole season either. So you just never know. You just never know until people get in that situation, what they're going to deal with. And in the SEC, you can't afford to be experimenting. You got to have somebody that's going to be solid and get you through. If you don't, then it's going to be a long year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think part of it too is, with these guys, again, we think Carson's performed well, but there's nothing like you were just saying, like in-game experience. And I've pointed to that Auburn game at the end of September. I think Georgia's got more talent, but Jordan Hare's going to be loud. And how does Carson Beck handle that? And, we could be singing a very different tune about this quarterback situation once you get into the season and they're out there going against defenses that can actually tackle them.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that. We were saying, look, I think it's the mental game. I mean, you may look great in practice, then you get out there in front of 100,000 people and they're talking bad about your mom and your dog and everything else. If you throw a pick, and then it's all over social media for the next week, it gets in your head. I mean, these guys are, 18 to, sometimes 25 years old, but either way, I mean, it's one of those things that you got to just be mentally strong. I mean, you really do. That's a lot of people yelling at you out there.
It is. And, when you look at it, Jordan, last night, AP comes out, has Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Ohio State 3, and Alabama 4. Tennessee was 12, Texas 11, Oklahoma 20. I mean, the SEC is just going to get, we keep bringing sand to the beach in the terms of just more and more. But I watched Matt Stinchcomb. He was like, nah, put Michigan 1. Of course, Matt's a dog. He's a damn good dog. All-American lineman there. But do you like Georgia being number 1? Or are you one of those people that says, look, they're back-to-back national champions. They're number 1 until somebody beats them. So a lot of people like that theory.
Well, I think the biggest thing is they do return a ton of talent. I don't know that necessarily coming off of a national champion, you should just put that reigning national champion as number 1. But also, I was an AP voter, I think, for a year when I was there at the Opelika Auburn News, and it's a crapshoot going into a season, man, because you'll put it out there and you'll be, especially when you get to like 17 through 25, you're just looking at all these lists and trying to decide what makes sense and what's not going to get you called out on social media. Yeah, but I will say, I think Kirby Smart is happy they're number 1 because he's going to get after these guys. He was after him after the first scrimmage on Saturday, saying, look at everything you guys have gotten and you've earned none of it. And that's what, I'm sure if we do get to watch some practice this week, I wouldn't be surprised if you hear him on the mic saying, doesn't look like the number 1 team to me. I mean, he's going to, anything like that, he's going to use it as fuel to the fire. He's going to get after these guys.
Yeah. I mean, I look at Georgia, 25 guys drafted the last 2 seasons and a bunch more free agents. Again, Kirby Smart's like, that was them. Y'all hadn't done anything. This team, this 23 Georgia team hadn't proven anything. And if you don't think the folks in Knoxville and Lexington, KY, and Gainesville and Columbia and Auburn and Tuscaloosa and everywhere else aren't just salivating and licking their chops to knock you off, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. Kirby's I don't know what his degree's in, if it's psychology, but I'm married to someone with a degree in psychology. And Audrey can read body language. She watches games, and God, she's good at it. Kirby Smart exudes confidence, but he's obsessed with not letting his teams get complacent. That's a great quality. I see it in him. Jordan, do you see it every day when you're around him? He's always trying to find some excuse to win.
Definitely. And I think even more than that, I mean, because that is a piece of it, but he knows how to motivate everybody, and everybody's a little bit different. And I think that's something that just generally in coaching that I think people take for granted is that not all players are the exact same. Some guys you got to yell at them. Some guys you got to,
Yeah.
pat them on the back and say, all right, look, you'll do better. Kirby understands. And I do think when you look at his time as a player, that I'm sure was monumental. And two, being raised by Sonny Smart, who was a high school coach. I mean, Kirby's talked about being in the locker rooms as a kid, and a lot like we see Andrew Smart, Kirby's son, going through now. I mean, he got to see that up close.
His son's not old enough, not even close to being old enough to be in college, is he?
No, he's like I think he may be in middle school. I mean, he's very, very young.
Yeah, because he talked about Mark at media days. Kirby Smart said, "I got to be a parent for 5 days in South Haven, Mississippi, for Travel League baseball." Which is on the Mississippi side of Memphis. Mark being from Collierville, that. But Mark, I mean, jump back in here. This is fun. I mean, everything is under a microscope for the back-to-back national champs.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's kind of like, Alabama when they were doing their thing, there for a while, and they've fallen off some. But, it's one of those things that, the expectation is to win, right? And Georgia's getting that now, and Georgia's earned it. But everyone circles that day as well, right? I mean, you're coming to town, and it's like, oh, we got Georgia. I mean, believe me, I've got 100 people have already texted me like, can you give me Georgia tickets? I'm like, no, they're all my daughter and all her dogs are coming up, and they got them. So, but yeah, everybody wants to come to that game depending on where we're at. But even if we've lost a game or two, I mean, it's going to be a big game. I mean, you got the national champion coming in, and everybody wants to win, right? So it's an easy target, right? To try to go after number one and knock them off. So it's going to be fun. It's always going to be fun, and it's just the atmosphere. It's just the best time of the, of the year to get involved in all this. But I agree with you about Kirby. I mean, there's something about him that makes his players just not take anything for granted. And I think by him doing that and motivating them is really what pushes them to do better. So.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the thing that gets me, looking at this season is I really do think more so Kirby and the staff compared to the players, they knew the right buttons to push in 2022. They were defending national champions, and they knew how to get the most out of those guys. And a lot of those guys from 2022 who didn't play quite as big a roles in 2021 and moved on, and you're kind of starting the cycle again. Now, there are some guys that are back from that team, like Cedric Van Pran, the center, Brock Bowers, Lab McConkey. But you got a lot of guys who are going through this for the first time in the sense that they're going to be starters, they're going to be playing bigger roles. But those veteran guys have been through it, and they sort of know the expectations, and the staff knows how to handle it and put those guys in position to succeed.
Mm-hmm. What are you seeing out of the running back room? Who's looking to be the alpha out there and the alpha too? Georgia always can run the ball.
The biggest thing is they're just trying to get healthy. I mean, I think if everybody was 100%, it'd probably be Kendall Milton, but he's just a guy that has not been able to stay healthy while he's been at Georgia. He has been dealing with a hamstring again in fall camp, which cut his spring short. He has been working off to the side with a trainer, has not been going with the running backs. So Dejon Edwards looks like he's going to be the number one guy, at least going into the season. And they're in good shape, even with Kendall not being able to go, because Dejon played quite a bit. I think he was the second leading rusher last year behind Kenny McIntosh. Maybe the best ball catcher out of the backfield of the running backs coming back. Branson Robinson's a little banged up. He's been working just individual drills, but he didn't participate in that scrimmage. Andrew Paul's kind of the guy I would put question mark or sort of the guy to keep an eye on. He tore his ACL last fall camp, and it sounds like he's getting some of that confidence in that knee back. He was a guy that we were hearing quite a bit about in that fall camp before he got hurt. So they've got options. I think they feel good. Kirby talked about that on Saturday. Just the options they got. Dejon Edwards, Roderick Robinson, who's a true freshman. Some of the walk-ons they really like. Cash Jones, who's a walk-on out of Texas, we've heard about maybe as much as any of the scholarship running backs. So I think they're in good shape. They would obviously want Kendall and Branson Robinson to get back and be full go. But I think that's sort of a work in progress with both those guys. And it's a situation, too. Kirby's never going to say this, but the way the schedule sets up early, 3 of the first 4 games are very, very easy. They're going to ease those guys back and try to have them ready for that full slate when it's, SEC opponent week after week.
Yeah. You get into Mark, you don't want to come out. To me, if you're breaking in a new quarterback, competition, regardless of who it is still better than playing against yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see the tendencies and, when you throw the ball, how the defensive guy is going to react, what the linebacker is going to do. So, you've got to get in there and start playing people, obviously. But I agree. I think, some of these early games, when you have some people on the schedule that you can, get some players in and get some experience and get them back in. I mean, that's why you schedule some of those, right? But, again, you'll see very quickly, who's going to be the gamer and who's not and who's going to do well. But injuries are tough, man. It's a tough go. We had that last year with one of our best receivers. So, and even our running backs. So when you get those injuries, it's difficult, but someone's got to step up.
Yeah. Jordan, looking at Georgia, again, we know what the schedule is early on. South Carolina was a much better team late last season. You've got them in the 3rd game of the season after UT Martin, Ball State. And Spencer Rattler came to life the last 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
He sure wasn't much early in the season. Jordan, about the relationship. Well, Will Muschamp is not the head coach, but he was at South Carolina. He knows that program well. That they try to make that a rivalry, but Georgia, other than the upset a few years ago, has dominated. Georgia won't look past South Carolina.
Definitely not, and not in that SEC opener, and definitely not with a new starting quarterback going into his first SEC game. I think that game would maybe have raised my eyebrows a little bit, maybe circled it as, hey, watch this one if it was in Columbia, where, that would have been the first road game for that quarterback. But the last few years, Georgia has made quick work of South Carolina. I mean, really, the entire Shane Beamer era. I mean, I think about that first year when he was on Zoom, talking about how deep they were and all the 5-stars they got everywhere. And, last year was really no different. I mean, I think Malachi Starks picked off Spencer Rattler earlier in that game. Brock Bowers had, I think, 3 touchdowns, and they won something like 48-6, and they were mad that they gave up the touchdown. I mean, we talked to them after the game. They were not happy that they lost that shutout. So it's not necessarily been very close during the Shane Beamer era. I know South Carolina wants to change that, but the fact that that's going to be the first really marquee home game of the season, it's going to be loud in Sanford Stadium, and I think it's going to fire up the Georgia team.
Yeah, I mean, you think about you're going for a three-peat. You've lost 1 game the last 2 years, and if I'm a Georgia fan, I don't care who we're playing. It's a W. You just keep adding to that list. I think the greatest era in Georgia football over a 4-year period, 80 to 83. I think Georgia was 43-4-1, 3 straight SEC titles, 80, 81, 82. And they played for the national championship 2 or 3 times in that era. Won, lost to Pitt, lost to Penn State. But man, this is how I would be focusing on it and going, look, you got a chance to become the greatest run in Georgia's incredible football tradition. I mean, there's so many narratives, Mark and Jordan, on how to get this team motivated. Yet you turn on TV and people are talking about, oh, Georgia has a weak schedule. I think Kirby Smart said it best. I don't know about that. But if you're playing for Georgia, you're in practice every day, you're playing the best team in the country, one of the best teams. Last time I checked, Georgia's pretty good. That's why he is winning. He's 81-15 in 7 years. He's winning almost 12 games a year.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible what he's done, and I think his message at media days was like, "If you think our schedule's weak, come play it." I think that's specifically what he said. But
Yeah.
the thing that I think sets Georgia up well, even if they do have a weak schedule, or if you feel like they should be playing tougher teams, is that they make the competition at practice harder. Everything we've ever heard from players is practice is 100 times harder than games. That's why we're able to go out and play like we do. And if you're going through the motions at practice, Georgia's got 4 stars and 5 stars up and down the depth chart. You can't lax. You can't go
Yeah.
through the motions. And that's something that Brock Bowers got a lot of praise for at midday. Last week when we talked to Todd Hartley, his position coach, he just said he's never just going through the motions. He said he's the hardest working kid I've ever seen. And when you get guys like that who not only are going to work hard, but I mean, one of the best players in college football, I think everybody behind them sort of follows in line. It's like, ducks following the mother down the line. They know how to do it and which way to go. Georgia's got the right type of big time players, the guys who do it the right way and put in the work. And I think everybody else around them sees that and says, well, if I'm going to play, I'm going to have to go all out.
Yeah, I agree. Look, we have run out of time today. I know Mark, man, enjoyed the hell out of having you on here co-hosting with me today. I know you're out in Houston, and we'll do this again here very soon. And Jordan, let people know, again, how they can follow you and all the great work you do, because, folks, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We got the right of free speech. That's what this show's all about. We get the best guests. And Jordan, tag us out, and we'll see everybody tomorrow.
Definitely. Dogs247.com, on Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill, on Twitter at Dogs247. So we're in the thick of fall camp, and season's less than 2 weeks away just from the college football standpoint, and can't get here soon enough.
Yeah, I think we're 18 days away, and actually 16 days away from the start of 384 hours away from the start of Utah and Florida out in Salt Lake City. And then you think about 18 times 24. I mean, wow, that's pretty easy. That we're 432 hours away. Oh man, it's getting close. Look, I love it. Hey, folks, we're out of here. Have a great one. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
All right.